Who knew that the first lesson we all learned as kids, the one that we mastered, will be the one we all forgot as grown-ups? Just don't talk to strangers. All right, welcome to Taste Take. If you're new here, I give spoiler-free movie and TV reviews. Give you a little background, just let you know if I think it's worth checking out or not. If that's something you're into, hit that subscribe button for your boy. For my regular taste takers, let's see if Netflix ate this one up. Get it?
Stop it. Stop it. Just stop it right
you
now.
hit me for
Stop
like
it
that.
right now.
Never mind. Let's do a little background / plot time here. This is the third installment of Netflix's Conversation with a Killer series. The other two were the ones with Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy. Never heard of him. This series was made by Joe Berlinger, who also did the true crime stories on the Cecil Hotel. I did a review on that. And then also the Times Square Killer. Quick side note, I just can't really imagine a guy whose life is devoted to just studying and researching these true crime stories. Like, I can't imagine it has an effect on you. But wait, I guess if Netflix keeps making these documentaries and I keep reviewing them, no, I gotta chill. Anyway, this new installment of Conversations with a Killer should be particularly popular after the recent success of Netflix's other Jeffrey Dahmer story, Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. It officially became one of Netflix's most watched shows of all time. In the first week, almost 200 million hours of that show were consumed. Nope, there's gotta be a better word. Anyway, Netflix has calculated that approximately 56 million households have watched this show in the first 2 weeks. But it wouldn't be a nationwide hit without a little controversy. Because apparently, even though Netflix says that this story is in honor of the victims and told from their perspectives, some of the victims' families said that they didn't even know they were making this show and it's bringing up old trauma. And to be fair, Netflix don't have to tell the family nothing. Like, this is all public knowledge, so they can do whatever they want. So what do y'all think? Like, does Netflix owe it to them to, like, get their blessing? Because, like, what if all the victim families were like, nope, can't do it? Like, number one, is Netflix going to be like, all right, then we won't put that story in there. Then the story's not even real. And if Netflix don't do it, someone else is going to do it. I'm just interested to hear y'all thoughts. Like, obviously, I don't know if the families, they're probably not trying to just get money off this, but I don't know if, like, I just showed up on a Netflix show and I didn't even know it was coming on and I just watched the TV and then it's freaking Idris Elba playing Chris Tate. I'll be pretty offended if, just give me a heads up. Like, as a reviewer, why do I know that this show's coming out and not the family? Is it complicated? I'm just curious to hear what, like, y'all opinion is. So you could put it in the comments. What do you think? Anyway, back to this documentary. Obviously, the whole point of it is to hear from the killers themselves. So now we have like 30 hours of previously unreleased tapes of Jeffrey's conversations with one of his attorneys, Wendy Patricus. She sat down with this guy one-on-one for like months and months, just hearing all these gross stories, like all the nitty-gritty details, just face-to-face with a murderer.
There are times that I felt like a mother to him. I felt like I was his therapist. But hearing the graphic detail was more than I could stand.
I had a drill at home, and it's gonna sound bad.
You can't help but to become close with somebody when you spend that many months with them. It was difficult to pretend like this isn't affecting me.
And you know what's really crazy is that this was her first case. Like, imagine you get to work on your first day and they're like, all right, so like y'all got some like training videos or like an orientation. And then your boss is like, actually, I'm gonna need you to sit down and talk to Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm sorry, you said who? Sit down and talk to who? I said Jeffrey. Sit down with Jeffrey who? Sit down with Jeffrey who? So yeah, the documentary brings all those conversations to light for the very first time. So what's my take? Let me put it like this. Before all this recent Jeffrey Dahmer hype, I really knew nothing about this dude. I didn't even watch the TV show. My household was not one of the 56 million. And after watching this documentary, Conversations with the Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes, I'm not even comfortable telling y'all how deep the rabbit hole I went in on this stuff is. And y'all been down with me, and I'm not ready to talk about it. Oh yeah, I forgot. So what's my take? If you watch the show, you kind of have to watch this documentary. Yeah, like you have to. It's impressive just how much the show got right in this case. And part of that is because the case was so public, but a lot of it is because Jeffrey Dahmer was so willing to tell the truth. He said he just wanted to help police and find out why he is the way he is. And that's what makes Jeffrey Dahmer so fascinating to me. He's not like other serial killers. Like, he doesn't hate, he doesn't get defensive, and he feels a good level of remorse. Of course, none of that makes it right. Like, just because this dude cooperated with the police and said sorry doesn't mean I'm gonna forgive him if he cut up my family member and turned him into a sandwich. But stories like this are important to help us like understand the brain. Like, can we live in a future without serial killers? Can we learn from these cases like what signs to look for? Can we help kids in like messed up situations not succumb to this crazy lifestyle? Like, it's just so many questions. But one of the biggest questions is just why is the Milwaukee Police Department such trash? Now, a lot of people think that Jeffrey Dahmer was a racist because most of his victims were black. And I'm not quite sure I believe that. For one, his first two victims were white. And then like he just moved to a black neighborhood and lived in a black building. And most importantly, was just attracted to black men. His victims only became his victims because he became obsessed with them. So again, I don't think his crimes were racially motivated. And he said that like over and over. What I do think though, is that if Jeffrey was black, he would have been arrested back in 1978 after the police stopped him for swerving on the road and he had Stephen Hicks' cut up body in his back seat. Like, what black registered sex offender arrested for molesting a 13-year-old boy will be allowed a second chance? It's black people rotting in jail right now for selling weed. Today, you could damn near buy weed on Amazon. The whole situation is messed up. But what's really messed up is how often the systems we constantly criticize for not protecting the most vulnerable have failed us. Again, I don't think Jeff was racist, but he benefited from possibly the greatest example of white privilege in recorded history. I'm gonna give Conversations with a Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes, 5 stars. Yeah, it's 5 stars. And it's not even like the best documentary ever, but like just the fact that it took me on this journey to find out more about this dude is 5 stars. And since I'm here, that Monster Netflix show about Jeffrey Dahmer, that's also 5 stars. Like, this stuff is just too interesting. And it's like so disgusting and we can't look away. That's another question I have for the audience out there. Why are we so obsessed with things that are disgusting? Is it because we're disgusting deep down? Or are we just so curious? Why do you think we like this stuff? This is disgusting. This dude was listening to a heartbeat and told this man he's gonna eat it. And he meant that. Why do we like this stuff? Anyway, I'm just reviewing this stuff off of like who should watch this. So like if you're into true crime, these 2 productions are 5 stars because the show obviously pays attention to the real facts and the documentary just gives you a little bit more insight into the real story. Like I said, the show did a good job of capturing like the true essence of the story, but there's a couple things that I didn't get right. For one, Niecy Nash plays Glenda Cleveland as like Jeffrey Dahmer's next door neighbor. But in real life, she wasn't his next door neighbor. She lived in the same complex, but like in a whole another building. Niecy's character in the show is really based off a combination of Glenda Cleveland and a woman named Pamela Bass. And speaking of the neighbors, it said that they didn't really complain about Jeffrey that much. And a lot of them said he was just like a nice guy. You don't really get that in the show. The sandwich was real though, but it wasn't Glenda Cleveland that got the sandwich. It was Pamela Bass, and she said she doesn't know if she ate human meat. Ugh. But then based on the documentary, it shouldn't have been human meat because the reason he says that he ate the people is to feel closer to them. So it wouldn't really make sense for him to just share that with others. But then here I am trying to make sense of this dude. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, this is nuts. Again, the show got a lot right, but I think you really got to watch this documentary to get a much closer look at the real Jeffrey Dahmer. Evan Peters is probably going to win an award for his portrayal of Jeffrey Dahmer, but in my opinion, he just played the character a little too creepy from what the real Jeffrey was like. Even in his voice, like, Evan made him sound like Napoleon Dynamite rather than like some seemingly normal guy that's able to bag hot black guys. And from what I've seen and read and heard, like, he really loved his grandma more than anyone else. So I don't think he would be shouting her like that, like what you see in the show. That's just my opinion though. But overall, again, I think you gotta watch both of these things. If you enjoyed the TV show, enjoyed meaning like, you know, you're into it. Not like you enjoyed watching that creepy stuff. But if you're into the case, you have to watch this documentary. They got like the actual attorneys, they got the friends of the victims, some of the families of the victims. Like, it's the real, it's like detectives that were on the case, reporters that were on the case, like people who were sitting in the room, like, it's a lot. It's good. Anyway, Conversations with a Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes, is available right now exclusively on Netflix. As always, thanks for checking out Taste Take. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like and that subscribe button. In the comments, like, I asked a lot of questions in the video. So like the first question I asked is like, do you think Netflix has a duty to tell the victims' families that they're making this thing? I didn't hear any complaints about this documentary that I'm reviewing, but of course, like I said, they were complaining about the show. Number 2, what is up with our obsession with true crime and people doing creepy things? Number 3, don't you think Jeffrey Dahmer was just a little different than the other serial killers? Like, do you think like something was really wrong with his brain? Like, I don't know, man. Like this guy says, like, you know, in the whole case, they're trying to decide if the judge is going to rule him insane or not. And in the end, they, you know, decided to rule him as sane. But then you'll hear in the documentary, this guy says, how many people in Milwaukee do you have to eat to be ruled insane? And that's a question I can't answer. Ugh. Thanks for the time, y'all. Peace.